Meares.
Week 3 is here.
It is, and I have a question for you to start off our show this week.
What do we got?
We have 7 undefeated teams left in the NFL. Statistically speaking, 2 of them are not going to make the playoffs. They are the Bills, the Bengals, the Texans, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Panthers, and the Cardinals. I'm a data guy, so I believe that these statistics are correct. Which 2 do you think are not going to make the playoffs?
Bills and the Cardinals.
That's a, you know what?
I mean, let's just go with franchises. I mean, you think the Bills are going to make the fucking playoffs?
I go and say the Texans.
Silver's back.
Texans and the Cardinals don't make it. That's
Cardinals? You got to pick the Bills to make the playoffs.
I think the Bills are going to make the playoffs.
Well, they do have 2 impressive wins.
They do.
But we're going to do 2 impressive games this week.
We are.
And then we're going to rapid fire the rest of it.
Yep.
Do some fantasy.
Correct.
We're going to go over the fact that once again, week 2, you got your dick kicked in by me on the individual game. I picked a tight end of the quarterback that you picked, killed you in the fantasy pick, and then I won the overall because you didn't pick your Eagles to win.
But they won.
We're going to do my game first.
Tough one to pick.
I had to do this. I would have picked something different, but we cannot analyze the Super Bowl rematch. First time that's happened in a long time.
It really has.
Denver is
going to Seattle.
Seattle favored by 4.5. My game, I'm going to pick it first.
Go for it.
I have a theory on this.
Okay.
Seattle covers.
Okay.
You know why they didn't last week? In just horrid dismay on my part saying that San Diego
We both said it. It's not good.
They have no respect for Phillip Rivers.
No, they don't.
They respect Peyton Manning. So logically, that would tell you that they would struggle against Peyton Manning and kill Phillip Rivers.
That does logically.
It works the opposite with them. They don't. If they don't give a shit about a quarterback, they just kind of fall asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, Kellen Clemens last year was the only quarterback that dominated them for 2 games.
That's true.
At least 1 game. I don't know if it was both games, but he should have won. The Rams should have beat them twice last year.
Yeah.
So they don't respect the Rams. They have the ability to fall asleep. They will not fall asleep against Peyton Manning because they're actually going to prepare. So what did that tell you? What's that tell you?
It tells me that...
Tells me that they're not going to repeat as Super Bowl champions because they obviously are sleepers.
All right, well,
they fall asleep at sleeping.
I've picked Denver 2 weeks in a row. Okay? They didn't cover week 1.
No.
And they didn't cover week 2.
I got that one right.
And you know what? I'm not riding them anymore. I don't think Denver's going to cover 3 games this entire season. So I'm going to take Seattle. I love your logic behind the pick.
Illogical logic.
And I like it. And Seattle's at home. If it was in Denver, it'd be different. The line wouldn't obviously be as big. Seattle's coming off a loss. I don't know if they've lost 2 games in a row in like 30 games. I know they haven't lost at home in a while. So
I know Andrew Luck hadn't lost 2 games in a row in his career until last night.
That's
How
true.
crazy is that?
And so I'm going to stick with you on this one and take Seattle, and I will give the 4.5 points.
It's because you don't want to lose another game.
That's true.
So last week we both picked our teams. I'm a Bills fan, you're an Eagles fan. I went with my team. You didn't go with your team. I beat you by a game. I think this is the theme of the show.
Okay.
Because you didn't have the nads to that doesn't even qualify.
I don't think so.
No, I'm going to put it 2 cents. My 2 cents that you didn't have the nads to pick your team. So this week you don't even have the nads to pick your team as a game. What's your game?
Well, to be honest with you, my team isn't really playing a team that's worth anything about mentioning this week. And we'll get to them in rapid fire. But this week I'm going to feature Green Bay at Detroit. 2 teams, Detroit favored by 1.5 by the way at home. 2 teams that I don't know what their identity is at this point. They both thrown up some really bad games against opponents. Good opponents, I'm assuming. I mean, Seattle and Carolina both look like good teams, and that's who they've lost to. And I just don't know who these teams are. Which one's going to show up? And I think this game is going to come out and prove which one of these is for real, which one's a contender.
They didn't lose to both of them.
No. Green Bay lost to Seattle. Detroit lost to Carolina.
Okay, gotcha,
that's what I meant. I think Green Bay is banged up on defense. They're struggling. I don't know how they're going to cover Megatron, who manages, no matter who he plays, to put up good numbers, good fantasy numbers. I think Matt Stafford is a hit or miss, but at home in that dome, I think that Detroit's the better team in this game. I think Green Bay, who I actually predicted to make it to the Super Bowl this year, is not looking very good. I'll take Detroit, and I'll give the 1.5.
I'll rewind just before I get into the game about my Super Bowl picks. Indianapolis versus New Orleans. Right, so
0-4 combined.
So, yeah, and fantasy abortions. That's for women's rights. Basically, this game comes down to, I don't know who either team is. The Green Bay Packers, if it was not a 60-minute game and the clock didn't stop, would have got their asses kicked by the Jets.
By the Jets!
The only reason that they won that game was because they were a better team for a 4.5-hour game. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but that was the longest game in the history of games.
Well, the only reason they won the game is because somebody on the Jets sideline called a timeout for no reason, and then they tied the game and it didn't count.
And then the media wants to make it like that's an illegally called timeout. Well, if the guy doesn't jump over the guy's head and catch the ball and they get an extra play, guess what they're talking about? They're talking about how it's an illegal timeout and it's in the favor of the Jets.
Right.
Regardless, I got to go with Detroit in this at home, only because Green Bay just doesn't look like they have it.
They don't.
They don't look like they have it. And to be honest with you, everybody on ESPN especially has made this argument is who's the best quarterback in football? Is it Peyton Manning? Obviously by a lot, but somehow they want to bring that down. And people claim that Aaron Rodgers is. And then people are still claiming that Tom Brady is. It's like, yo, ding dong, man. Like the clock is struck 12. Game is coming to an end. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't have it to go anymore.
Not this year.
I don't know what made him go before, if it was fleet of feet and he's lost that or whatever, but he's always been a gunslinger a little bit, and he doesn't have it, so I can't go with him. Now it's time for rapid fire. We're going to do every game. You start with the game in the line.
Thursday night game, Tampa Bay traveling to Atlanta. Atlanta 6.5-point favorite at home.
Not happy with Tampa Bay after last week. I picked them as my defense in fantasy, and they didn't do well, so I'm taking Atlanta with the 6.5.
Yeah, Atlanta's going to bounce back after that game against the Bengals. I'll take them minus 6.5 also. Tennessee traveling to the Bengals. Cincinnati 6.5-point favorite also.
They lost to Dallas last week, and they looked horrific. Tennessee, that is. So I'm not picking them, so Cincinnati with 6.5.
Cincinnati's the most complete team to me in the NFL right now. I know they're a little banged up, but I think they win this game easily, and I'll take Cincinnati minus 6.5. Indianapolis 0-2, traveling to also 0-2 Jacksonville. Jacksonville only a 6.5-point dog at home.
Yeah, the only part of that is fine. I'll take all 6.5s this week. No way Jacksonville covers. They are the worst team in the league until they play Oakland, and then we'll have that showdown.
I agree. They've been outscored 75-7 in the last 6 quarters. I will take Indianapolis to cover easily.
Solid.
San Diego traveling to Buffalo. Buffalo surprising 2-0, but I like them. 2.5-point favorites at home.
Buffalo goes and looks Phillip Rivers straight in his bitch face and says, "Fuck you," and covers.
I think Buffalo is one of my 2 dark horses this season. We'll get to the other one later. I like Buffalo in this game. I don't think San Diego travels well across the coast. Give me Buffalo minus the 2.5. Redskins traveling to Philadelphia for a divisional rivalry game. Philadelphia 7.5-point favorite.
Philadelphia wins, but they don't cover because Riley Cooper's a fucking pussy, and I cut him off my team this week. Thanks for your 1 catch and 8 yards. Eagles win, don't cover, despite the triage of the Washington Redskins.
Crazy thing for me is I think Washington might be a better team with Kirk Cousins than with RG3. And it's a divisional battle, so I do like the Redskins to cover this game, but I do think the Eagles will win. Little known fact, Eagles have outscored the entire league with just the points they've scored in the second half.
And they haven't beaten a single team in the first half.
Oakland traveling to New England with the biggest line of the week. New England favored by 14.5.
I've gone on record on this show. I will not touch a line that big. I got a 28-0 with 5 minutes to go. 2 late touchdowns make it 28-14. They cover, but they lose. The Raiders, that is.
I disagree. I think New England easily covers against the Raiders. I think the Raiders are that bad, and no way they're going to win in New England.
David Carr's getting a lot of junk time touchdowns. I'm just letting you know.
Houston, surprising 2-0, traveling to the Giants. Not really a surprising 0-2, and the Giants are 2.5-point underdog at home.
Giants lost to the 1 quarterback that I beat in high school last year, or last week. So I won't pick them for the rest of the year.
The Giants are really, really bad.
They're really bad.
Houston's actually looked really good. They haven't really played anybody that good yet, but I will take Houston to go in and just manhandle the Giants. I like Houston to win and cover the 2.5. Minnesota traveling to New Orleans. New Orleans, despite being 0-2 and not winning yet, is a 9.5-point favorite against Minnesota.
Child beaters. Drew Brees. I got to take New Orleans because if Adrian Peterson plays, I don't even want to see it. We don't get into that stuff on this show, but for anybody to think that that's normal on one occasion, let alone several. So I'll make an emotional pick on that and just say that they'll cover the 9.5.
I am going to take Minnesota to cover. New Orleans to win outright. I think that's too many points for a team that's 0-2 to cover. Green Bay. Oh, we did that game in our feature. Sorry about that. Baltimore traveling to Cleveland. Cleveland 2-0, surprisingly also, and they are a 1.5 point favorite. 1.5 point underdog at home.
You know what? If the spread, matched where they were, and they were 3.5 underdogs at Baltimore, I would take Baltimore at home. I think this is a home game decision, and I'm going to take Cleveland to win because I think right now what they have going on in that city, despite the fact that Johnny Manziel comes in for a 1-yard rush, I love it. Brian Hoyer stepping up, and they could be 2-0 very easily. But that was a big win last week. I think they ride the momentum, and I think they win and cover.
I like this team.
Or do they have to cover?
No, they'll get points.
Yeah, definitely.
So I like this team. This is with Buffalo. I think these are my 1 and 2 dark horses. I think one of these teams is going to make the playoffs, if not both. Mark it down right now.
No way.
I will take Cleveland to cover. I've taken them to cover the first.
Win 8 games, but no.
I've taken them to cover
the dream.
I've taken them to cover the first 2 weeks, and they have. I say they keep it going, and they cover for the third straight week. Dallas traveling to St. Louis. This is my lock of the week, by the way. St. Louis is a 1.5 point underdog at home.
I mean, this is the quarterback that I tied in high school because I'm famously, 1-7-1 in my quarterback career. I beat the guy that played last week for the Cardinals, and then I tied the guy that played for St. Louis last week. I don't understand it, but Dallas obviously not the worst defense in the league. I don't even think I just can't go with third string quarterback. And if the guy that's like 47 years old comes back with a bad thigh, I can't take that either.
I will take Dallas to cover also. This is, as I said, my lock of the week. Put all the money on it. Put your mortgage, your house, your kids, everything.
Don't do that.
San Francisco traveling to Arizona. Arizona leading the division at 2-0, and they are a 2.5 point underdog. What do you got in this game?
Conditional. Last week we got burnt on a couple picks because of injuries and suspensions. I picked Minnesota last week and didn't realize that there was whippings involved. If I had known about the whippings, I wouldn't have picked Minnesota. Carson Palmer plays. I got Arizona to cover. If he doesn't, I got San Francisco or Arizona to have to cover.
Well, they have 2.5. They get 2.5. So you're picking the win if Carson
Palmer
wins.
Okay. And then San Francisco covers.
Right. I'm going to do the same thing. I agree. It's a definite dependent pick. Kansas City traveling to Miami in the I don't really give a shit game. Miami is a 4.5 point favorite at home.
This is the game that will define Andy Reid's career. I paid a lie too. They're awful. Miami I thought was good after beating New England. I got to take Miami in this just because they look at least good once. I mean, that's the only philosophy I have. I
like your philosophy. I'm going with it also. I think Miami covers. Kansas City, I don't think they can put up a fight. Pittsburgh traveling to Carolina. Carolina, a 3.5 point favorite at home.
Pittsburgh won the first week against Cleveland, but if they had lost, I would pick them to possibly be the worst team in the league. They look anemic in certain spots.
Not good.
Ben Roethlisberger, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning. We're talking about all these elite quarterbacks.
Super Bowl winning quarterbacks.
What's Roethlisberger's big fucking nickname?
Big Ben?
Yeah, what's that, a clock?
Yeah.
It's ticking, boys. It's ticking, and time is told for Roethlisberger. This is going to be a rough year, and I hope it doesn't cost Mike Tomlin his job.
Yeah.
But he's got a great future going back to movies.
Yeah, Omar Epps.
Is there a difference?
I like Carolina in this game also. I think their defense is spectacular. I think Luke Kuechly is the best middle linebacker in the game at this point right now. And I would take Carolina to win this game. I think even...
Kinkley?
Kuechly. Luke Kuechly?
Oh, flag on me.
From Boston College.
I thought his name was Kinkley.
Kuechly. I think Carolina...
Kinkley was the guy that shot Reagan. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
No, it was Hinckley.
I think even Cam Newton looked like in his first game he looked comfortable. So I like him. Let's go to the last
Defense
game.
wins for them.
Let's go to the last game of the season. Last game of the season, yeah.
Last game of the season.
Last game
We're going on strike because we can't figure out how to keep our players out of jail.
Last game of the week, Monday night, Chicago traveling to the New York Jets. Jets favored by 1.5 at home.
No reason for the New York Jets after the last 5 years to be on Monday Night Football week 3.
Also put Jacksonville on.
Chicago didn't make the playoffs. Jets didn't make the playoffs. Why on earth is this a primetime game if it's not two major markets? This is the problem I have with the NFL. What's the spread, 2.5?
1.5.
1.5. You know what? I'll call it a tie. So I'll take the Jets. I hope it's a 0-0 tie, and I hope that's what they bring to the table for Monday Night Football. Why is this a game on Monday Night Football? There's no reason for it.
I'm going to take
whatsoever.
I'm going to take the Bears. I think the Bears are a better team. They beat San Francisco, who might not be the best, but they did beat them. And if Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey can get a little bit healthier this week, because the catch that Marshall made in the end zone was phenomenal this week on Sunday night.
Which one?
The one where one-handed, that was insane.
Was it the one in the 3?
Yeah, it was. He's a beast.
If he was on my fantasy team, I wasn't going to play him. Thanks, ESPN. You guys are awesome. Glad you have so many sources because you're the best.
So
Neither of them were playing at 12 o'clock.
I'm taking Chicago. Let's go on to fantasy.
Now it's time for our fantasy picks.
Yes.
Where we each pick one person a week.
Yep.
We're going on a year-long point total.
Correct.
The only rule is at some point throughout the course of 17 weeks, we have to fill one of all 5 positions.
Exactly.
Which is funny because last week I knocked out the tight end. And I thought maybe I'd take a hit, but how'd that work out?
Yeah, I lost 33-17, and I'm down 58-34 for the year.
So I got a 24-point lead, or is that 30?
24 points.
Is that 34?
58 minus 34 is 24.
58 minus 24?
34.
Oh, 34. I thought it was 24. So in the spirit of that, I think I'm going to knock my defense out this week.
Good. That lets me come back.
I can't think of a better week to pick a defense because I got spanked last week by New England's defense and special teams.
All right.
They're at home against Oakland. If I win again this week, it pretty much seals the deal for the rest of the time because I'll have my pick of the litter. Wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, whatever you want.
I think I got a good one this week, up my sleeve. And I'm going to repeat my position from last week. I'm going to go quarterback again, and I'm going to go Tony Romo against St. Louis. Putting up big numbers this week. Mark it down, coming back, bring it!
So that's our show for week 3.
It is.
Can anybody even actually view this? Like, how do they get there with the clicks? You got to watch this straight through.
You got to go all the way through.
If you're still here watching this, you are the greatest fan of all time.
We love you.
Leave a comment and say, I saw this.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about what you can click on, because at this point, I don't think anybody's here. Prove to us that you're here.
If you do that, I'll give you a special prize, which will be announced next week at the end of the show. So now you have to come back twice. Ha ha!